This is Milwaukee's Flush Cut blade. Hey guys, Brad here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a Milwaukee Sawzall blade, which I saw at a store I've never seen before, and I thought I'd pick it up and take a look at it. Before we get into the video, make sure you subscribe, hit that notify bell, give me a thumbs up if you like it, and definitely leave some comments down below. So let's take a close look at this saw blade. This is Milwaukee's Flush Cut blade. Now, the reason I got this is because it's wider and I thought it would not flex as much as sort of your standard Sawzall blade. They've designed this primarily, I think, for cutting out bottom plates in doorways. So let's say you're framing a basement and you frame up your walls, typically with your doors in them, and you run that bottom plate all the way through. You can see here in the picture, I don't know if you can make out, but they're cutting out the bottom plate for the door. Now, one problem that we probably all found over the years is when you do cut that bottom plate out, sometimes you cut on a bit of an angle, sometimes you hit the concrete and you're dulling your blade. So, you know, and if you're cutting with a Sawzall like this and your blade is in this position, it's really hard to get flush. So I typically flip my blade and I cut like this, but you still have to use a longer blade so you can get down right down to the concrete, because you've got this gap. See that gap there? So you can't ever really get nice and flush. So you can use a handsaw if you want, but then you're guaranteed to dull that thing over time. So Milwaukee came out with this flush cut blade. Now, they're saying that you can use it for multiple applications, like cutting out windows and just any sort of like flush application. I really wanted to get this for cutting fence posts, because when you're cutting a 4x6 fence post with a saw after you've built the fence, I don't do it the same way every time, but when you're using your circular saw, you can't get in all the way. If you use a Sawzall on a fence post, sometimes the blade can start to run on you and it'll kind of curve up or curve down, and it's super annoying and very unprofessional, and you just don't want to have that issue. So using a saw blade like this, it stays flat. It maintains in the groove and it won't run up or run down on you. So I've been using this a bit for cutting fence posts, and it does work pretty well. And it's doing exactly what I wanted. It's staying flat. So one thing they've done on here, which is kind of neat, is at the front and at the back, they have these flat sort of nubs that stick down, and they stick down past the blade just a hair. Now, the reason for that is when you're cutting a bottom plate, and especially on a concrete floor, when this is sitting flat, it's keeping those teeth just a hair off of the ground so you don't dull the blades. So that's a really, really good idea that Milwaukee came up with, and it will prolong the life of this blade, because I think this blade is around 30 bucks, so it's not cheap. And Sawzall blades, they're just not cheap. They're too expensive in my mind. So especially when you're doing lots of demolition. So I think this is a really great blade. I myself would not use this for cutting out windows. I typically use a router and a flush trim bit. I used to use a Sawzall back in the day, but I don't do that anymore. So let's cut just a piece of wood. I'll just demonstrate, and yeah, we'll show how this thing works. Now, I don't have a flush scenario here, so we're just going to cut some wood. And this is a wood and nail embedded blade, so you can cut through nails with it as well. All right. So one thing I'm going to point out that you may have noticed in the video is that there's a lot of vibration. My hands are just tingling. And that's because this blade has a lot more surface area than these little guys. So when you're cutting, you are jiggling around a lot. And I do notice that these smaller Sawzalls or Recip saws, this size does vibrate a little bit more than the larger ones. But with this blade, it really does vibrate a lot. So this blade definitely has its applications. If you think if you do a lot of basements, this might be worth getting. If you do a lot of fencing and you're having issues maybe cutting straight, this could be a good option for you. If you do a lot of framing and you want to cut windows out with a Sawzall and not with a router, let's say you sheet your windows and you stand up your walls and you haven't cut your window out yet, then from the inside, this is always great because, you know, when you're cutting a window from the inside, a lot of the times what will happen if you're using just a regular Sawzall, this is your window jamb, and you're cutting like this. And by the way, this can plunge. If you're wondering, this has a good plunging bit on the end. So we can just cut down like that and it works great. However, if we're using a skinnier blade, you can plunge, but a lot of the times these can start to run on you and you start cutting into this window jamb. And then I've seen it before where a guy will end up cutting like an inch out of there. He's just not paying attention, just trying to go too fast. So maybe if you've got some green guys on the site, that might be a blade that's good for you. But I know most framers are just using routers anyhow, so you know, I'm not recommending this really for that, but you could use it. So it's definitely got its applications. I don't love the vibration that it produces because of the large surface area, but if you need something like this, like I said, it does offer something a lot different than just your regular skinny blade. All right, guys, I want to hear some comments down below. What do you think of this? Is it worth the money? Is it a waste of money? What are your thoughts? Have you tried them? You know, have you put them through the paces? I've been using this now for a couple months, and obviously not every day, just sort of once in a while. And so far, I'm happy with it, but ultimately, you know, it's kind of a niche product. All right, leave some comments down below, subscribe, hit that notify bell. Till next time, keep on crushing it. We'll catch you later.